Coffee Break German, Season 3, Episode 1. Hallo und herzlich willkommen zurück zu Coffee Break German. Ich bin Marc.
Und ich bin Andrea.
Wie geht's dir, Andrea? Es ist lange her.
Ja, sehr lange, Marc. Ja, mir geht's super. Und dir?
Ja, mir geht's auch super. I can't believe we're back. This is Season 3, the first episode of our third season of Coffee Break German. And we have got lots to look forward to. First of all, if you're joining us, you've found us on this new podcast feed, which means that you're going to be focusing on more advanced German, intermediate to advanced German in this podcast feed, while we'll continue on offering more intermediate content on our main feed. But coming up in Season 3, what can we expect, Andrea?
Yes, it's going to be very interesting because we're going to start it slowly and look at a bit of repetition and so to ease people in and also to ease you in, Mark.
Yeah,
yes.
That's what I'm a little bit worried about because I think ich habe alles vergessen.
Yeah, but don't be fooled, yeah. There will be lots of new stuff and I think towards the end it will get quite tricky and quite interesting actually.
I look forward to it. Now, it's obviously a new season and we're going to be dealing with things ever so slightly differently. We'll have a chat in the first part about some aspect of the language. And then in the second part of each lesson, we've got a conversation, a dialogue set in some kind of situation. And Andrea, you've come up with all of these dialogues and I'm looking forward to listening to them. I'm in some of them, of course, but we've also got some other voices too. And you'll be getting to know different voices throughout this season. So, shall we get ready? Shall we get started?
Bist du bereit, Marc?
Natürlich bin ich bereit. Also los geht's.
Los geht's.
Also, Andrea, was machen wir in Folge 1 von Coffee Break German Season 3?
Ich habe mir gedacht, dass wir mit einem Thema beginnen können, das wir schon kennen.
Okay.
Ja? Und so können unsere Zuhörerinnen und Zuhörer das neue Format kennenlernen, Strukturen repetieren und etwas Neues dazulernen.
Right. So this is really good practice because we're straight in there. I'm trying to understand exactly what you've said. So I think if I've understood this correctly, you said that we're starting with something that we already know.
Ja, genau, ja.
Okay. And is this in order for our listeners to kind of get to know the new format, to review some structures and at the same time, etwas Neues dazu lernen, something new. We're going to learn something new.
Ja, genau.
Now, Andrea, what is this new topic that we already know but can learn something new about?
So I thought we could look at the perfect or the present perfect, as it's called in English, and look at some more irregular verbs that we haven't seen so far.
Okay, so we have looked at the perfect tense before in Coffee Break German Season 2 and learned a few of the irregular verbs. It's a tense that allows us to speak about what happened in the past, correct?
Yeah. So the present perfect or perfect, as it's called in German, it's connected to the present. Okay. So, but we use it very often in spoken German when we speak about something that happened in the past.
Okay.
Do you still remember how to build the present perfect in German?
I hope I haven't forgotten everything. I think we need a part of our auxiliary verb, which I guess in most cases is haben. And some verbs would use sein. And then we combine that with the past participle.
Genau, richtig. Yeah, that's correct. And how do you make the past participle?
Right. That's the bit I was kind of hoping you wouldn't ask me about because I know there's a g in there normally, so...
There can be one, yes.
Yeah, okay, that's the thing. So there can be a g, but if can I give you some verbs that I remember?
Yeah,
would that be
go
okay?
for it.
Okay,
yeah.
So I can think like, for example, machen would become gemacht.
Ja, das ist richtig, ja. And what about something, a separable verb like einkaufen?
Right, with those ones, then the g goes in the middle between the separable parts, as it were. So now is eingekauft?
Ja, richtig. Ja, eingekauft. Ja, sehr gut.
Okay.
Super. Ja. And then there is one that is tricky. Arbeiten is always a good example for these ones. What is happening with arbeiten?
Right, with arbeiten then. Normally, we're adding a T at the end, but with arbeiten, am I right in thinking that if we take off the en at the end, we're left with a T, so we can't really add another T on its own?
No, exactly. We wouldn't say, ich habe gearbeitet. Yeah.
So in that case, would we say gearbeitet?
Das ist richtig, Mark. Bravo. So we're adding ET at the end. It's the same as with verbs ending in a D, like baden, to bathe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we wouldn't say, ich habe gebadet. We say, ich habe gebadet.
Gebadet,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Okay.
So, and now I have a verb for you that is very different from the ones that we've done so far. And it's verkaufen. Verkaufen, so to sell. What is different about this?
Right. I'm going to pretend that I've got that perfect Sprachgefühl that native speakers have, which is that sort of feeling for the language that you just think, that sounds weird. I think if we were to put a G in front of verkaufen, it would sound really weird because it would be geverkauft.
Yes, your Sprachgefühl is absolutely correct, Mark. Verkauft is richtig because ver is a prefix.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we had one word earlier, einkaufen, and ein is also a prefix, but ein is separable and ver is not separable.
Okay.
So where with einkaufen we have eingekauft, we wouldn't say vergekauft because the prefix is not separable, so that would be wrong. And what did you say was odd earlier?
I said
Geverkauft just sounds really weird. So we don't do that. We just say verkauft.
Okay. So, for example, I could say, ich habe etwas verkauft. I have sold something.
Genau, richtig. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
And then I have a verb for you from my favorite group of regular verbs. And it's kopieren.
So, to copy?
Yes.
Okay. Would that be kopiert?
Yes. So it's verbs in ieren. Yeah, verbs in ieren. And they all just add a T after the root. Yeah, kopiert, frittiert, for example. And you know why I love this so much, Mark?
Why is that?
Because I am Swiss. And the Swiss have way more of verbs in ieren than the Germans. Yeah,
okay,
so for
right.
example, the Germans say, ich habe mein Auto geparkt, because their verb is parken. But Swiss people say, ich habe mein Auto parkiert, because our verb is parkieren.
Parkieren, okay. Well, I should reassure our listeners that the German that we're learning in Coffee Break German Season 3, and indeed all of Coffee Break German, is very much Hochdeutsch. And we're learning standard German. But it's always great to hear differences in regional words and vocabulary and pronunciation and so on.
Yes, but we stick to standard German of the German variety, absolute.
Okay, so those are some regular verbs. What about irregular verbs?
Yes, there are obviously irregular verbs, and there are many. I can give you some good news. 80% of all the verbs are regular, but unfortunately, that's the bad news, not the 80% of most used words are regular. Okay, so we use many of the irregular verbs, and my recommendation is to just learn them. Each time you come across one, maybe write it down and practice it, and just do it like this.
And of course, if you find a verb and you don't know what the infinitive is, and it's obviously quite irregular, then you can simply type it into a dictionary website like Word Reference, and then you'll get the infinitive for it, and then you can see the full conjugation and learn it that way. Let's think about some of these irregular ones, Andrea.
Yes. So, for example, fliegen.
Ich habe geflogen. No, ich bin geflogen.
Ja, genau, sehr gut. Okay. So, geflogen ist korrekt, ja, und ich bin.
Ja.
Geflogen ist korrekt. And maybe as a next step, we can look at why it is bin and nicht haben. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that in a moment.
Yes, but I'll give you another verb and you just give me the past participle.
Okay.
Fahren.
With fahren, I think it's just gefahren.
Ja, sehr gut. Bravo, sehr gut.
Okay.
And then the last one, essen.
Oh, I know this one. Gegessen.
Sehr gut, super, bravo. So let's look at, so we've had two verbs, fliegen and fahren. Yeah, and fliegen, we've already found out that this is ich bin geflogen. Yeah.
Yep, so that's to fly, isn't it?
Genau, ja.
Yeah.
What about fahren?
Well, there again, we've seen a change of location because fahren means to go somewhere, to travel somewhere. In that case, we're needing sein as our auxiliary verb.
Genau, das ist richtig. Also ich bin gefahren. Yeah, so that's very good. And you've already said it, Mark. So there is a change of location. Sometimes people think, oh, it's because it's movement. But it's not just movement. It's that you have moved from A to B doing this activity.
Yep.
Okay. And I always like, my favorite verb. And everyone
You're going to dance,
can
aren't you?
imagine me now doing this. It's tanzen. Ja. So zum Beispiel, ich habe in meinem Wohnzimmer getanzt.
Yeah.
Ja. So I danced in my living room. Okay, I hope everyone is picturing this. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I have used here haben because although I move very much, I haven't changed out of the living room. I'm still in the living room.
Yeah, so we can imagine Andrea dancing away in her living room, but not moving from her living room. And there she's using haben.
Exactly. But now if you think I'm leaving the living room and the music is all over my house and I'm dancing into the kitchen, ja, ich bin in die Küche getanzt.
Yeah, so you danced into the kitchen. You started in the living room, still dancing, and you danced all the way into the kitchen, yeah?
Yes, this is a regular occurrence at my home.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
So you see, it's really a change of location that decides whether it's haben or sein, or a change of state. So a very nice verb to illustrate this would be einschlafen.
To fall asleep.
Ja. Ich bin eingeschlafen. This means before I was awake, but now I am asleep.
So there is a change of state. There might not be change of location there. Unlikely,
no,
you're probably still in bed.
But a change of state. So first I was awake and now I'm asleep. So ich bin eingeschlafen. Yeah.
And of course, one other thing that comes up there when you're talking about the dancing is the cases that follow. But we're not going to talk about that just now.
That's just a different story, Mark.
I think we've got a few episodes coming up in which we'll be talking about different cases. Right. Okay, so when it's haben is used generally for all of the verbs unless there is this change of location or state. Give us some examples, Andrea.
Yes. So, for example, with fahren, wir sind nach Deutschland gefahren.
So we went to Germany.
Genau, ja. Fritz ist schnell eingeschlafen.
Right, so there we're seeing einschlafen, to fall asleep. And because there's a change of state, Fritz fell asleep quickly.
Genau. Und Franziska ist in den Garten gegangen.
Right, so there Franziska went into the garden.
Genau, sehr gut. Okay? So, but there is obviously a big exception to this rule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
okay.
and I find this funny. Okay? Because the exception to this rule is bleiben.
Right, so bleiben is to remain or to stay.
So the opposite of a change. Yeah.
Exactly, I was going to say that. Inherently, there's no change of location or state, but with bleiben, then you're saying that you do use sein.
You use sein, ja, ich bin geblieben.
Ich bin geblieben. Okay, and that's the one where you change the I, the EI in the infinitive to IE.
Genau,
Ich bin geblieben. Yeah, tricky.
Yeah, it is tricky. Yeah, so I think this is one to just memorize.
Yeah. Okay. Right, let's move on because I think what we should do is look at some further irregular verbs.
Genau, yeah. So, for example, one that is used quite often is trinken, yeah, and the past participle is getrunken.
Okay, so trinken meaning to drink and getrunken, ich habe etwas getrunken, I have drunk something.
Genau, sehr gut. Und dann haben wir schlafen.
To sleep.
And our past participle is geschlafen.
Right, no, so that's not eingeschlafen, so...
Nein, das ist ich habe geschlafen. Ich habe 10 Stunden geschlafen.
Right, so I slept for 10 hours, and that's definitely haben there. So ich habe geschlafen.
Genau,
okay.
Sehr gut. And another one that might be useful is anhalten, so to stop.
To stop, yeah. And what's that?
Angehalten. So you have the G in the middle. Okay. But it's angehalten. So it's slightly irregular.
Angehalten.
And one that is so useful, Mark, because we do it all the time. Okay. And it's sprechen.
Natürlich, ja.
Ja,
so to speak. I think I know this. It's gesprochen, isn't it?
Sehr gut, ja. So, ich habe mit Mark gesprochen.
Yeah. So I spoke to Mark, and that's with haben again.
Genau, ja.
So these have all been haben verbs, haven't they?
Genau, ja. But I also have a couple for you with sein that might be useful. Okay. And they're very much public transport related.
Okay.
So, for example, einsteigen.
That's when you get on a train?
Genau, on a train, on a bus, or even on a car.
On a car, yeah.
So ich bin eingestiegen.
Ja. Eingestiegen, right. Again, one of those changing EIs to IEs.
Genau. So what's good about eingestiegen is that it goes well with ausgestiegen, which is you got off the train. Ja, ich bin eingestiegen, ich bin ausgestiegen.
Okay.
Ja. And another one could be abfahren.
Right, so that's what the train does. It leaves.
Ja. So, ja, genau, leaves. So you see this often, Abfahrt at the train station, and it's departure.
Yep.
Ja. Abfahren, and the past participle is abgefahren.
Abgefahren, okay. Because I would have probably guessed abgefahrt there, but because of the Abfahrt.
You see? There you go.
Good to know. Okay, so far we've been looking at some perfect tenses and reviewing this and getting back into the way of thinking about things. And after the break, we're going to be seeing many of these perfect tenses in a real-life conversation. So we'll be back in just a moment.
In addition to the podcast version of Coffee Break German Season 3, we're also putting together a full course on the Coffee Break Academy, where you'll be able to access bonus materials to help you make even better progress with your German.
That's right. Not only will you be able to enjoy an ad-free audio version of each lesson, we'll also provide a bonus episode where Andrea will be testing us with some translation challenges based on the topic of each lesson. And of course, there are comprehensive notes and a video version of each lesson too. Visit coffeebreakgerman.com and follow the links for Season 3 there. Okay, we are talking about the perfect tense in German today, and you have prepared for us a dialogue. Andrea, tell us a little about what we can expect in this dialogue.
So, wir werden viele Perfekte sehen. Yeah, so we see many instances of present perfect, of all the things we've looked at today. So, regular verbs, irregular verbs, with haben, with sein, with a separable prefix, without a separable prefix. So everything we've looked at today will be in some form in this dialogue.
Okay, now, this dialogue is between two people. I am playing the part of Chris, and you're playing the part of?
Sabine.
Sabine. Okay. And in future episodes, you'll be hearing other German voices too. For today's is between Andrea and myself playing these parts. So let's take a listen to this dialogue, and then we'll talk a little about it afterwards.
Hallo Chris, wir haben uns schon lange nicht mehr gesehen. Wie geht es dir?
Hallo Sabine, mir geht es gut, danke. Ich habe in letzter Zeit viel Deutsch gelernt und deshalb bin ich wenig ausgegangen.
Ach so, verstehe. Da hast du sicher große Fortschritte gemacht.
Na ja, du hingegen siehst sehr erholt aus. Warst du im Urlaub?
Ja, Karl und ich sind 2 Wochen mit dem Wohnmobil verreist. Wir sind in der Schweiz rumgefahren. Es war fantastisch.
Das hört sich toll an. Habt ihr immer im Wohnmobil geschlafen oder habt ihr auch mal geschummelt?
Also einmal haben wir in einem Hotel übernachtet. Dort haben wir auch gut gegessen und am Morgen richtig lange ausgeschlafen. Aber sonst sind wir mit dem Wohnmobil rumgetuckert und haben bei Campingplätzen angehalten. Manche waren so schön, dass wir gleich 2 Nächte geblieben sind. Einmal hat uns ein Bauer angeboten, dass wir bei ihm auf dem Hof parken können.
Ach toll, da hat euch sicher am Morgen der Hahn geweckt.
Wir waren so müde, dass wir nichts gehört haben. Am Tag zuvor haben wir unser Abendessen selbst gefangen. Fisch. Den haben wir auf dem Grill gebraten. Das hat richtig gut geschmeckt. Die Überreste hat dann die Katze gefressen.
Lecker. Habt ihr denn auch ein paar Städte besucht?
Ja, klar. Wir haben uns Zürich und Lausanne angeschaut. Zürich war sehr schön, aber auch sehr teuer. Wir haben im Café nur etwas getrunken. In Lausanne haben wir uns mit Freunden getroffen, uns an den See gesetzt und uns unterhalten. Unsere Freunde sind noch ins Wasser gesprungen und haben sich abgekühlt.
Und da habt ihr Französisch gesprochen?
Nein, zum Glück können unsere Freunde Deutsch und haben uns gut verstanden.
Well, you were certainly reading quite quickly there, Andrea.
Reading? That was a natural conversation.
Oh, sorry, yeah, of course. It was so natural because I was not following a script at all. I must reassure our listeners that I was very much reading that script, not necessarily fully understanding everything I was saying, but as I said, we'll have other native speakers of German in future lessons. For this one, it was just Sabine and Chris, otherwise Andrea and Mark. Now, we're not going to go through this in detail in this episode. What we'll do is go through the detail of this in our bonus episode. But for now, Andrea, can you give us a quick summary of what has happened here on Sabine's holiday in Switzerland?
Ja, natürlich. So Sabine went with Karl on holidays and they had a Wohnmobil.
Yep.
Ja.
Like our friends Karin and family
Genau,
in the travel diaries, yeah?
Genau, so they had a Wohnmobil, a camper van. Und Chris wonders whether they always slept in the camper van or if they have geschummelt sometimes.
Yeah, I like that.
Ja?
Geschummelt, so to cheat.
To cheat, ja. Schummeln ist to cheat, so die haben geschummelt, ja. And they did. They spent one night in a hotel, yeah, and there they had some good food and also slept quite long. And otherwise, they were on campsites, so Campingplätze.
And they stayed in a farm one night, didn't they?
Yes, and one night they slept on a farm. And Chris wonders whether they have been woken up by the cockerel, yeah?
Yeah, der Hahn.
Der Hahn geweckt. Vom Hahn geweckt werden is to be woken up by the cockerel.
Excellent.
And they grilled some fish that they caught themselves. And Chris wonders whether they had visited some cities. And indeed, they did. They went to see Zurich in the German-speaking part and Andreas' hometown, so my hometown, and also Lausanne, which is in the French-speaking part. And they complained that Zurich was very, very expensive, that they could only drink something in a cafe and not eat something. But in Lausanne, they enjoyed themselves very much and met some friends at the lake who, luckily for them, understood German very well.
Excellent. As I said, we're going to go through that in detail in the bonus episode. So if you'd like to get access to that, head to coffeebreakgerman.com and follow the links there, and you'll be able to find the bonus episode there. Also, das reicht für heute, oder?
Moment, Mark. Ich habe noch eine Kleinigkeit.
Yes, that's right. I'd forgotten about that. Ich hatte vergessen.
Ja, so eine Kleinigkeit, a small thing, a little addition, noch eine Kleinigkeit. I will introduce some phrases or idioms from German, which are very much language that we use in everyday life. So I think that should be a nice addition.
Okay, Andrea, take it away with your first noch eine Kleinigkeit.
Yes, so my first one is dieser Zug ist abgefahren.
This train has departed.
Yes, exactly.
So what does it mean?
Well, it's something, you've missed out on an opportunity, or in English, because obviously in Scotland you have fewer trains and more boats, so...
We say this ship has sailed.
Genau, dieser Zug ist abgefahren.
Ausgezeichnet. Okay, that is really where we're going to leave it. Das reicht für heute. Once again, for any more information about Coffee Break German and to find out how you can get access to all the bonus materials, head over to coffeebreakgerman.com and just follow the links for Season 3. Andrea, vielen Dank.
Ja, vielen Dank, Mark.
It's been great to be back for another episode of Coffee Break German. Bis zum nächsten Mal.
Bis bald.
You have been listening to a Coffee Break Languages production for the Radiolingua Network. Copyright 2021 Radiolingua Limited. Recording copyright 2021 Radiolingua Limited. All rights reserved.